I still got a couple minutes to start. All right. Ooh. No, not NPM. Oh, you. Darn it. Wow, there are too many people in here. I think I should leave. All right, one. All right. We have 12, 18. I guess we're missing. So. And I should definitely know which 3 are missing. All right. I think we'll just go ahead and get started. Okay. So, yarn. Yeah, the emojis. Yeah, it's cool. Okay. No, you have to go. Sorry. Good morning, Evan. Hello, everybody. People that I like. Well, I think that this is a likable cohort. You've been a fun bunch of people to be stuck in a tiny room with. Okay, so today's lecture is on more WebSockets. This is the description of the lecture. More fun with WebSockets by live coding an example. And yeah, this, especially when I was starting, was like always my least favorite, and they always gave it to me. I never quite knew what to do with it. And then I also always saw a lot of React stuff and kind of patterns that had sort of fallen by the wayside over the course of like you're picking up so many things and that sort of what's it. So I am going to do. This isn't going to be a more WebSockets lecture so much as well, more WebSockets, more or less. We're going to talk about a few things that would be handy when you are working with React and want to kind of put stuff together. And also, we're going to talk about async await, which are some keywords for handling promises. We're going to talk about authentication in single-page applications. I'm going to show you kind of one way to do that. And then we're going to do authentication across apps, so that if you were doing a React app that had like an HTTP side, well, of course, you're dealing with HTTP, right, because you're logging the link. If you have that and a socket, well, how would you get those two things to know who you were, especially if those two sockets, if the socket and the server are on different like domains and everything, right? You can't exactly just pass the same logic back and forth. How do you get them to know they are in different spots? Oh, yum. I don't know why that's so much fun to say. I think I would get tired of it by now, but no. Week 6 is still fun. I think it's because you're still fun, is what's happening. Yeah, what? Yeah, you're an enjoyable individual and a cohort of enjoyable individuals. Is what I'm saying. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna start with async await. Remind me, did I have your promises lecture?
Yes.
Did I teach you guys promises? Week 4, day 4, you would have been doing midterms. Did you remember me talking about making breakfast? did I eat promises for breakfast with you guys?
I remember away, so.
Oh, yeah, the promise.
And it was you,
Yeah.
so.
All right. Yes, I was.
Yeah.
Rebecca Halliburton is referred to me as the king of promises, which in this context is a nice thing to say, but generally speaking sounds like something you would yell in a relationship with your significant others. Oh yeah, you're just the king of promises, aren't you? So what we're going to do is we're going to make breakfast. JS. So this is an example I go through with promises because there's a few things you do with promises. The first is that you will you'll start a promise and then you'll consume the result, right? Because promises we often do things where it's like we have to wait for something to happen, right? Yeah. So, for instance, if you went into a restaurant and you sat down and you might order breakfast, right? You don't have to pass anything into that. Eventually you will have to, pay money. Let's just say for right now, you're just like, hey, I want one of those breakfasts you keep talking about, and the waiter's like, one breakfast coming up, right? I'm going to make a little function called delay resolve here. I'm going to make a function called delay, and I'm going to set a timeout equals 2,000 milliseconds, 2 seconds. And I'm going to say return new promise. The promise constructor takes in an executor with resolve and or reject. So I'm going to pass in resolve. And I'm just going to say here, hey, set timeout and resolve after 2,000 milliseconds. And then I'm also going to make a delay resolve with some sort of val and timeout equals 2,000. And what this is going to say is return delay timeout. I ended up making this particular, I really wish that the promise spec included a delay. They would have made me just so much happier. They did not. And, but yeah, I end up running these two functions a lot when I am doing interaction. When I'm actually doing UI, especially when I'm doing UI and I don't have the API guy ready, right? And so these help me at least pretend that I'm waiting a certain amount of time for things, and I can see what it looks like to wait a certain amount of time for something, right? Okay, order breakfast is return, delay resolve, and we are going to have a cup of coffee, not a coffin. And we're kind of putting, I know we're putting a cup in a cup. That's I gotta read for that. It's a whole thing. Invalid character. Oh, Chef, you know what's up. All right, and then, oh, that's right. No, it's supposed to be like that. I guess. Right. And then bacon. And fried eggs. Maybe a bit of shrimp there. All right. So what happens is you get this, and then at some point I'm like, console.log, I would like breakfast, right? And then I order breakfast, dot then. And I'll say console.log. Yum. It's. And then breakfast. Right? I order breakfast, and then when the breakfast comes, I consume the breakfast. Right? That's not what I meant to do at all. NodeMon breakfast.js. Alright, I would like breakfast. Yum, I got my breakfast. That's some snappy service we have here. The restaurant makes it really easy by just making the one breakfast. Okay, so we make something, we consume it, right? We covered that one. But there's another thing we can do, which is that we can have an asynchronous process, that we wait for something else to finish, and then when it's done, we sort of transform the result. So what I'm going to do is, let's put this down here. I want to brew coffee, function brew coffee. So this is me making my own breakfast now because I've spent too much money in restaurants ordering breakfast. I want to return delay resolve. Right? And then what I can do is I can pour a cup of coffee. So I can say that function pour coffee is, I'm going to start that pot of coffee problem. I'm going to start that brewing coffee. Brew coffee. Dot then coffee. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to transform this. Like, so if I have a pot of coffee, I transform it into like a drinkable cup of coffee by I pour it, I do pour the milk, I put in the sugar, I can do the things. But this is a synchronous process in that I am there the entire time, right? I am doing something. I can't really do anything else while I'm kind of preparing this coffee, can I? I'm a serial monotasker, right? I can only do one thing at one time, and then I can move on to the next task. So what I have to do here is I could transform this by just saying, well, in this particularly pathetic case, I'm just going to pour it into a cup. But this is a synchronous transformation of an asynchronous result, shall we say? Right? Now, so I can now pour coffee and it will give me a cup of coffee. Right? Then the next one, the next thing I can do is I can chain async processes. If I have to wait for something, I may have to wait for something, get the result of that, and then wait for the next thing, right? So in this case, let's say I want to make some eggs. I want to make some bacon and eggs, and I'm going to fry the eggs in the bacon grease, right? So here we have function fry bacon, and this is going to, the results of this is going to be a little array that has bacon and grease. There's no grease emoji, unless I can find John Travolta. All right. Because he made a movie called Grease, is why that's uproariously funny. Just in case anyone was wondering why they were laughing. So we have function fry eggs, and it's going to take in the grease, right? We're not going to return the grease. We're just going to be like, eventually we'll dispose of the grease. We don't really care about it when it's done. But we're going to say delay resolve. So yeah, once we have the grease, then we can turn the fried eggs, right? So if I want to fry bacon then eggs, what I do is I first say const eggs and grease promise equals fry bacon. Oh yeah, fry bacon and grease. Here's fry bacon. And then I'm going to return bacon and grease promise dot then, little destructuring here, little bacon, little grease. Not bacon, grease promise, bacon, grease. I think my autocomplete's got a little too optimistic. Like, give it this thing, like, whoa, okay, back up. I will press tab when I need you, don't worry. I should figure out how to optimize that. What I end up doing is then I say return by saying const eggs promise equals fry eggs with that grease. Then I'm going to eventually return the eggs promise dot then eggs, and I'm going to return bacon and eggs. So this is me chaining two async operations. I want one to finish before I start the next. With async operations, there's often a cycle of I start something and then I get it, right? If you're juggling, you have the throwing and then you have the catching, right? So you can't juggle if all you can do is throw. Fair enough? Or you can't juggle if you're like just terrible at throwing, only good at catching, where you're like, boom. Doesn't work. So yeah, this is me chaining. It looks a bit, we're gonna actually find a way to simplify this, but the next thing I might want to do is might want to start two async processes at the same time, and then when they are both done, kind of unite the context, right? And does anyone know the promise method I do to combine two of these things?
Oh.
Yeah, that's what's, I was just about to say, I promise all of you will know about it by the end. You beat me to it. All right, function make breakfast. We're going to say const cup of coffee promise equals pour coffee. Const bacon and eggs promise equals fried bacon and eggs, right? And then here I'm going to say that const combined promise equals promise.all, capital P promise dot all, and cup of coffee promise, bacon and eggs promise. Oh no, sorry, they have to go in an array. So send that as an array. And then I'm going to say here, return combined promise. And this promise is going to have my coffee, or my cup of coffee. See? Yeah. And then my bacon and eggs, right? And my bacon and eggs I'm going to split up into bacon, then eggs, right? Because what I want to eventually have is I want to have the exact same signature where I want to return cup of coffee, bacon, eggs. I'm doing one last synchronous transformation, right? So now instead of ordering breakfast, I can make breakfast. There's a that's the thing. Then it takes a little bit longer just because I have a couple of async promises that are chained, right? But I have the exact same output through my combination of promises. So this is a recap of promises, and I'm going to say copy breakfast.js to breakfast async await. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a new keyword here. A new set of keywords that are part of like ES7, I want to say, maybe ES6, I think ES7. Called async and await. And what they do is they let us create asynchronous functions. So if, let me do async await by itself for a moment. Async await.wtf.js. Right? So let's say I said I made a function const get 3 synchronous equals 3, and I console.log get 3 sync. What do you expect the console log to be there? It just already says 3. I shouldn't have saved that. All right, I've already ruined it. But what we can do is we can also create a function const get 3 sync async is now async function 3. So I'm putting this async keyword before this function, letting it know it's an async function. So what I'm going to get here is instead of the value 3, it's going to return me a promise that immediately resolves with 3. Okay? So basically whatever comes out of an async function is not going to be the value, it's going to be the promise of that value. It's syntactic sugar around values, which is pretty cool. Now, so far all you've seen is that this is a thing that returns promises instead of the actual values. Okay, so it basically put your value in like one of those Best Buy clamshells they put your headphones in, and then you gotta unwrap it yourself, right? Which doesn't seem awesome, but there is a cool pairing with the async. So one thing is that if you get 3 async and const get 3 from promise async equals async. So now what we have is that whether this returns a value or a promise with a value, we know it's going to kind of coerce it into a promise of a value, right? These two return the exact same thing. Can you all see behind my head? It's a big giant head. I understand. No, I can't really buy hats. And sunglasses are also uncomfortable. So yeah, we have promise 3, promise 3. So it will coerce everything into a promise, whether you return a promise or a regular value. So that's handy. But the real beauty is the await keyword. So if you have an async function, within your scope of your async function, you can use the await keyword. And that works like this. Let's say I do that, I'm going to go back to breakfast async await, and I'm going to grab this delay function, right? And I want to return, I want to make a function delay resolve. In fact, I'll do this, I won't do this here, I'm going to do this live. Delay resolve here, it returns the delay time, so it makes that promise, then it courses it into another promise. But what I can do here is make this async, and then I can say await delay timeout return val. And what this says is, I want you to wait until this promise resolves and then go, right? So we're end up writing this in a very kind of what they call the direct style of programming. So it's very, like, instead of nesting a bunch of callbacks, we don't have to nest callbacks anymore. We just say like, hey, I'll wait for this thing and then return the next thing. So if I'm going to do nodemon breakfast dash async await. I would like breakfast. 4 seconds later. Yeah, so I'm using delay resolve everywhere through here, and this just works. It waits as long as that thing takes, and then it returns the value. So let's now this is async. This is a wait where all it does is waits for something to finish. That's actually get a value from a promise. So what I can say here is my pour coffee is I get a coffee and then I do something with it, right? So now what I'm going to say is const coffee equals await brew coffee. Return a is mad because, oh right, I cannot use await without async. But now, I still have that, it's still able to do this, okay? So basically it's like, hey, get the copy from this thing. I'm basically taking it out of that promise and continuing on. This is syntactic sugar for this. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean by syntactic sugar? Basically, it lets you do the same thing, but in a more readable style. There's also such a thing as syntactic salt. And we have lots of that in JavaScript. Okay, now, this guy. Whew, that is tangly, right? Can you read what this does in like, how many seconds would it take you to read this and understand it? Because your seconds are important. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say const bacon and grease equals await fried bacon. And basically I'm going to take everything that's in here, Control X, Control V. Banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4 banana. So it all still works. But then when you're doing this again, right? Okay, well I'm going to say const eggs equals await fry eggs grease. Two banana, 3 banana, 4 banana, 5 banana. I'm going to put those two functions side by side. Zoom out a little bit on them. But look at this fry bacon then eggs compared to this fry bacon then eggs. Which of these is easier to read? Which of these is easier to describe? Code that's easy to read is easy to maintain. When I write code, I often think about the next person who will see my code, knowing full well that that next person who's going to see my code may very well be me in 6 months. After having looked at very different code and not knowing what I'm doing here. Okay, so let's go back here. Now this is a promise.all, but this still works, right? I could say, maybe all I want to do here is just say like, okay, const this stuff equals await. Sick function, bro. All right, sorry. Maybe that's all I want to say, and then return. And I could do that, but another thing that's actually kind of fun to do is, if I start these two now, I've started them both at the same time. Okay? So they're off doing their own things. I'm not chaining them together. I'm saying like, okay, you guys are off doing your own things. That's cool. I've started both of these processes immediately. I have turned on my stove and I have flipped my coffee pot to brew, whatever the thing is, whatever this is. I'm not sure what I'm doing here. This thing right here, right? So I've started those two things, and right here, and they are both now going off at the same time, and they're going to resolve. So what I can say here is I can use a promise.all if I want to, but because I'm starting them and stopping them in 2 steps, as long as right here, the fact that I say await and then say await means don't start this until this is done. Yeah? So the fact that I've started these two already means that I could just say that's it. So if you use the async await syntax, you have gotten rid of the .then keyword, and you've gotten rid of the promise.all keyword. There's one case where it's like, I still don't want promise.all, which if you have like a bunch of things, then you have to perform an async, which we'll actually get an example of how to do this well. So, oh, don't you worry. We'll get there.
Is there any issues, since this is fairly, you can see it's 7 stuff, but
Yeah.
when like Babel tries to turn it into like...
Babel handles it beautifully. You can add async to your class methods. You can kind of create stuff. One thing I find myself doing quite often is creating async ifs, async immediately invoked function expressions. So like, let's say I'm like, you know what? These functions are kind of extraneous. I could say const bacon and eggs promise equals async, not that. Come on. Microsoft's going to get a note from me. And then here I might say, and this will still work just fine. Right? So I often do this, and it's like I can create an async ify. Babel handles this better than anything. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Yo.
But I thought in promise.all you were like running 5 different like promises like at the same time you could, and then they'd all come. But this seems like you're first awaiting cup of coffee promise, and then you're going to the next one.
That's the thing, is that I started these two here. This is me. I start to async promises, to async processes at once. So I'm just pour coffee, fry bacon.
Those don't have a waiting.
Right, exactly.
That you have.
And then after that, I put in the await keyword, and then they are doing what they do. So you're going to see a lot of code like this. Yeah, even right here, I can just I can do an async ify real quick. No, it's amazing. Okay, so I kind of wanted to introduce this so that I and other lecturers could use this in the future. We don't have really exercise on it, but hopefully you can see it and see examples of it. It's amazing. There is a great YouTube video on the subject that I will include in the notes. That's from a conference that Don spoke at, actually. But it's not his speaking. Although his talk is good too, you should find it. Yeah. So yeah, no more callback hell. Not even callback heck. It looks like we think code should look, you know? So that's handy. Also, JavaScript is not the only one with the syntax. C# actually has similar syntax. And if you have one, they have a task object. It's a lot like promise. I'm not sure if Java has this or is getting this, but they do have a future object similar to promises. Yeah. Cool. Okay, that is async await. I will write notes on this later. But the main thing is functions marked with async return a promise. You can use the await keyword in an async function to wait for promises to resolve. You do have to be mindful of when you start promises and catch them. So yeah, if I had done that make breakfast thing where I'd forgotten to do that last step, if I'd forgotten and just like, oh, cup of coffee equals a wait, pour coffee, bacon egg equals a wait, fry bacon and eggs, then this process would have taken me 6 seconds, not 4. Because I would have had the whole, so it'd be like me walking into the kitchen, making the coffee, pouring it up, and then after it's done, starting to fry my bacon and eggs, right? Here, I'm starting both processes at once. I hate this one. Okay, cool. You know what? We're gonna go ahead and take a coffee break. When we come back, we're gonna do authentication in single-page applications. And yeah, and then we're gonna do across apps. In spite of us. Rainbow.
4chan
Like
freaking.
Yeah, it looks like it's getting bigger. No way.
But then yeah, I'm just playing around right now with the colors and the counter.
Yeah, that's-
I think,
All right, should I
I think that's what I want.
get
I was
started?
hoping something not so retro. I like the Jerry Crew one, but here's it was pretty nice. He's a Jaker.
I like their product. I'm thinking of it would be good to have something hard to manage. But like multiple together. Yeah, and then they are like I think they like used to be just a block.
Okay, I'm Circus Channel. Alright, Otis is still in my students again. Otis the puppy, just the cutest little guy, has stolen my students. Alright.
That hurts.
Yeah. Yes, Otis, much like Elisha Otis, the inventor of the elevator, lifts up a lot of people. I'm let you think about that one.
Keep it open so there's more airflow.
Yeah, I mean, I just, let's keep it mostly open, I guess. I'm gonna put one of these guys here, and that's technically a fire hazard, but I'm sure you can file out safely. In fact, let me open up my window as well, get a little going. Okay, so right now in the other room, in that giant classroom, there are a third of you learning about. There's a third of the size of the population of this room learning about authentication in like 3 times the space. So, just really wanted to rub that in. So, what I am going to talk about is the exact same thing, which you'll be pleased to know. So what I've done is I have I've made a very simple server that has log out, log in, and me. It has a me route. Now the thing that ends up happening with single page applications is that you sort of have that HTTP, HTML, like CSS, JavaScript images, all that goes on, right? But, well, I'm not sure how to put this. The thing that, while it may be the case, you also, what I'm trying to say, then you also have a series of calls that are all about just pure data, right? And so you have your front end, instead of the UI, instead of you providing data to a UI, you provide a little UI, and then the UI makes calls to an API, right? What does UI mean? User interface. Someone did rearrange the alphabet, put you and I together. I know, it's all. What does API stand for? Application Programming Interface. So it basically lets one program talk to another program, right? So I want to show you, you kind of have to learn how to do authentication with UI, right? So I'm going to show you how to do it with an API, right? So what I've done is I've made 3 routes that are important, and one of them is me. Now, when I go to GitHub, let's put that there. Let's put this guy here. When I go to github.com and I visit my profile here, okay, she's just closer to the source of wisdom. I'm sorry to disappoint you. It's mostly going to be lecture projects you're going to see. The occasional fun thing, like this Sokoban is a good redux implementation of the Sokoban logic puzzle. I was pretty proud of that one. But you'll notice, okay, so there's a link here, which is to https://github.com/account. So you'll notice that the settings/profile page does not have my name in it anywhere, right? So why is this information all about me? Why did I go here and not see all of Carmen's data? It's because I am not currently logged in as Carmen. I don't know your password, don't worry, you're saying. Yeah, when it goes there, it's like, oh, I'm going to get the stuff. So you might think about all of your routes, especially when we have cookies and that sort of stuff, and sessions and that sort of thing. They are personal. They are about a person viewing. You can think of the user as the center of your universe. Now, you don't actually think of the user as the center of your universe. The truth is that the user is just one tiny speck in your universe. But from their own experience, they're the center. So you end up thinking about the entire system as a whole and every user as just one part of it. But from a user experience standpoint, they are the center. So when I say me, there's a good reason for that me should be that. And if I log in, there's a good reason for me to reveal the information of Joel Shinnis. Whereas if Danny logged in as me, she would be, well, she wouldn't be me. You might ask her, like, are you me? And she'd be like, yes, but that's just because when she says me, she means her, because she's using me wrong. Yeah, it adds up. So usually the first step that happens in a single page application, I mean, you can do some sort of server-side rendering. You can preload it with data, that's always a possibility, but for the most part what happens is, the easiest pattern is that you load up the thing, and then you grab some info. You make a request, right? Now, I just visited GitHub for the first time today, after not having been on it all night, I guess. And it still knew who I was. And why did it know who I was? Because my cookie didn't expire. I have a session. I have a session that's being kind of kept as a cookie and yada, yada, yada. So we're going to do that here too. Okay, so let's say I'm trying to log into me, and I'm going to send, and I am not logged in. I got some stuff here. I'm not sure to clear my cookies as easily. Oh, that's more stuff than I planned on. Cookies. Let's go ahead and clear them all. No cookies available. So yeah, when I say send with no cookies. And the result is a 401 unauthorized and the message unauthorized. Right? So what I can do is I have a login route. I use formal encoded, but I also have a JSON, so I can use JSON if I'd like. Email Joel at joel.joel, password, well, I think we all know how that was going to end. So if I log in with Jeff as the password, I should have a thing that's like, hey.
Oh, because you guys are hot?
Yes.
Okay.
Joe, is the code on GitHub? Can we download it and play like the way you do?
What I'm doing right now?
Yeah.
It will be. Do you want me to start loading it to GitHub now?
Yeah.
Is that what your day looks like? All right. Yeah, I get it. You know what? I can do that. Let me open up another thing here. LS. Yeah, let's get in it. Get in it. Get status. Should I add the breakfast stuff? I might make a gist of that. Gist. Async await. Breakfast.js. Breakfast-async await.js. Right? I'll put that in my lecture MD. Okay. And since that's there, should I do it? It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. All right, so I'm going to add git add client dot git status git add server. Although now that I think about it, since I just kind of made that server myself, the client has a git ignore. You guys, you always have to take care of your git ignores. So I'm going to go here and say server touch server git ignore. I'm going to add node modules. Save that. Just doing the git stuff. Git status. Git add server. Dot git ignore. Git rm server. -r, I suppose. Okay. Git status. That's not what I wanted, even a little bit. I'm going to take a moment. Yes. That looks like stuff I like. I git commit -m initial commit. Well, yeah, that's all fine. I need to get myself a git branch. GitHub. That's me. That's my face on it. New repository. I'm sorry, Danny. This is what it's gonna be. Week 6, day 4, June 4. You guys did June 4, 2018. Lecture. Auth in React. Lecture. Your repository. There. These last 5 minutes brought to you by Koangwin. And that pronunciation of Nguyen brought by, I'm not entirely certain how to pronounce Nguyen correctly. I've heard it said a bunch of times. I don't think I can quite get it right. It's not for lack of trying. And I know a thing or two about phonetics, so it seems like every time I'm like, Nguyen? They're like, no. Nguyen? No. Nguyen? No. All right. So, okay. Source. All right. Yeah. So now I have that email password combination not found. When I say Joel, oh, I know. I'm gonna have to do a thing. CD server npm install because I just deleted on the node modules. Oh yeah, bcrypt. I forgot about bcrypt. 0 vulnerabilities, go team. Anyone know any good jokes? I should have just done that. Okay, cool. So we have, let's go back and make sure me works. Unauthorized, it's a good sign. So I'm going to log in with Joel and Joel. And indeed now I have this, and also I have set a couple of cookies. Okay? So I have a GitHub and an avatar and a thing and a thing and another thing. I'm including my password. I might go back here to my login routes. and say something like this. Const password user equals await. Now, this may is this confusing to anybody, what this does? All right, good. What this basically says is that I'm getting the password variable, and then the user means, hey, I want this thing and then everything else. So this gives me a copy of the user object, but without the password. And therefore, I can now pass that off to this. And when I do that now, and go to me, I feel like an error happened. Rec.session.user ID. Oh, it might not have got something. Let me see. Right, because I restarted the. Is what happened. Const user equals await that thing. If user, then user without password equals user. There. Now when I get me, it's going to be like, I don't know you, so I have to go here, try logging in again. There I am, and when I do a call to me, here I am. Now I might go back to my user data service. Now I have this user data service I've created. This is going to represent me getting data up until the point that I can actually like connect this to a database. But I don't have a database yet because reasons. So I'm going to have this. Right, get user by email. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be like, you know what? I want. I'm going to create a function here, get user without password, and it's going to take in a user or not. And I might say if user const. I'm going to be doing this a couple times, so I'm just going to say that. Equals user, return user without password. I'll return user. So then here I can say it's get user by email, get user by all of these. I'm going to start. I want to make them async real quick. Async function. Now I'm going to say, hey, return get user without password, await, delay resolve. So now this gets that without the password. Add that away. Same thing with by email here. Again, to break this down, const user equals await delay resolve this thing. Return get user without yeah, I can't do that because I need to make that async. So let's do the async await here, all right? And let's do this as a team. Go team. We're a team. We're a big old team. We're still in this, unlike Argentina. So. Yeah, all right. Unlike England, who expected that? Well done, Croatia. All right. So this thing, gets user by email, and then if the user exists, it does the bcrypt.compare. Oh, well, maybe I don't want to do that. Yeah, this one. Yeah, this one we're going to leave as is. Apparently, I'm not really releasing this one. So, oh, this is being noticed out there. So, get return get user by email. You know what we're doing here is we have get user by email as a promise, right? So, how will we make this async await? What's the first thing I have to do to this function? I have to put async in front of it. Async function. All right. And now it totally responds to the password, or with the promise. We're good there. So, next thing I want to do, this get user by email, it returns a promise that resolves the user, or undefined, right? So I'm going to say const user, which is this guy here, equals await get user by email, and then all the stuff in here. Goes over one. Right? It's already so much simpler. Then I'm going to say, hey, if user return bcrypt.compare, well, in that case I'm going to say is valid. So I got a dot then, so I'm going to get rid of the dot then. Const is valid equals await. Right? In fact, I can sort of take this up here if I wanted to. Oh, that's just so pretty. It's so pretty, you guys. Look at that. If user and await bcrypt.compare password user.password return user. Oh, it's so pretty, you guys. Mind you, there's one thing up top here, which is that I'm using bcrypt.hashSync again. How would I do that with this? How would I make that hashy? Yes. Do you want to see some crazy little? All right, there's one more like promise.all set. Sometimes you do promise.all and you have a known number of weird promises, right? I got my coffee, got my bacon and eggs. They're nothing like each other, right? But sometimes you have an unknown number of very similar promises. So in this case, right now I just have me right here. So I'm going to say users promise equals promise.all. So I'm going to take the password here. My password's going to be Joel. So I'm going to break this down into pieces. Initial users data equals one of these. It's an array of one thing because I'm lazy. Const users promises, because I want to do that bcrypt to hash sync. So equals dot map initial user data return. Well, I'm going to say, so I'm going to grab that password. Return bcrypt.hash password 12 dot then, and then here's the password hash, right? And then I'm going to return dot initial users data, with password is password hash, right? which is a lot of stuff. And then const users promise equals promise.all user promises. User promises. Now, this is a little tangly. Let's see if we can use async await to kind of make this easier. Async. Now I can say const password hash equals await decrypt.hash password 12. Turn alright. That seems to be okay.
So this is you registering a new user.
Well, this is me just taking my user data. This would be almost like me creating a seed. But I'm doing it after the hash. So now, everywhere here, so I have a user's promise, right? So get user without password there. So function get user by ID is not going to start on users here because I have a user's promise. But I can just easily say const users equals await user's promise. And that's the problem solved. Saying await is only valid in an async function. Where did I use await within async? Let me create script objects. Const users equals await user's promise. User's promise. Oh. Async. All right. So there's me kind of handling some of my synchrony using async await. Good heavens, it saved me so much time and legibility. I think Don was kind of on the fence about it just being an extra bit of syntactic sugar. And then he went to this conference and saw this guy talking. He's like, oh, and he saw some of my code and he's like, oh. And now it's kind of the way we both code when we're actually coding. Not the point though. So we have me, we have login, we have logout. If we take a look at me, unauthorized, login, send, get this, right? Okay. And if I log out, it just destroys, clears the session here. If I go back to me, unauthorized. Cool, cool, cool. So let's do this on this side. My app starts with app extends components. I have some stuff here that I'm not using anymore. So what I'm going to say is I have React Strap that I brought in. React Strap is a set of React components is a bunch of Bootstrap's components for React. So if I look at that, has kind of all this stuff. So I'm going to say div class name equals container, right? So what I'm going to do here is I have all this stuff, class app, export default class. I'm going to give the import for a second. And what end up happening is in my app, which describes the logic of my whatever, almost always, not always, but almost always, I'm gonna wait till it mounts and then I'm gonna start some Ajax-y thing. All right? I'm going to go back here. I'm going to say yarn add. I'm going to bring in a library called Axios, just an Ajax library, pretty simple promise-based Ajax library. You can also use fetch, which is native now. It has polyfill in with Babel ES 2015. but it does some weird things, and Axios is kind of better for lectures at least. So, yarn start. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to import Axios from Axios, and see that failed to compile. This is prof. Cannot resolve. Oh, maybe I did not yarn add bootstrap. I guess that did not happen. There. Should see nothing. And nothing's what I see. Go team. H1 go team. Alright. So what I'm going to do is, my first thing is I'm going to start a component did mount. And my component did mount is going to trigger an AJAX call. Usually I kind of put those AJAX calls into their own method. So load me. Here I'm going to say this.load me. And I'm going to say axios.get me. Now I do need to set up one thing, which is that has anyone done proxies yet? I guess you wouldn't have done proxies yet. All right, so AJAX. Can I, just in the regular course of business, without any special what's it, make a call from localhost 3000 and order something from localhost and do an AJAX called localhost 3001? Has anybody tried that? Has anyone tried AJAXing to a file on their system? Just open up an HTML file, try to get something in the system. There is a problem that happens. So I have localhost 3000 running. So http://localhost 3001/me. Then, well, we're just going to take a look at the response and see what happens. Console.log response. Yarn start. Okay, and I'm going to open up this. I'm going to take a look here. I should have my network's going to fill in with a bunch of stuff, but you'll notice it's a problem here. Oh, it did work. Did I already have that proxy in mind? Interesting. Usually this fails for the reasons, and it's not failing today. Well, it is kind of failing today, but for a different reason, which I find interesting. But we're going to go with it. The one thing I was going to basically point out is that if I did a call to /me, it wouldn't be thrilled with me. It'd be a 404, I can't get me because there's no me here, right? So what I can do in my client, and this is something that you can do because Webpack Dev Server allows this, is that I can add something to my package JSON. In Webpack Dev Server, you have to actually find a different config, but you can do this there as well. I'm going to set up a proxy, localhost 3001. And that says when I make a thing that would be a 404, what I want you to do is actually go to find to this thing the next door, right? So the example I give is, you can imagine that, let's say that I brought in, let's say Mindy is my boss, and she is grievous and unreasonable. All right. And let's say that Lexi and I are great friends, and Lexi's a great fan of making muffins. So I'm hanging out with my good friend Lexi, and she's like, I made a bunch of muffins, and they're really good. And I taste them, and I'm like, yeah, they're really good. And she's like, I made too many muffins. I got distracted and made several dozen. And would you want to take some with you? And I could be like, yeah, I'll take some to work. And so I take the muffins, and I go over. All right. And then Mindy's like, okay, oh, these are delicious muffins. you should make more of these and bring them in. And I'm like, well, I didn't make the muffins. She was like, I can only have muffins that you make. Okay. Bring me more, make more of these muffins and bring them to me tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a thing I'll do. So I might just be like, yeah, and you're like, more muffins, and I'll be like, yeah, more muffins. And I go over like, so do that. Can I grab some more of these muffins? I'm gonna say it's from me just because I work for a tyrant. And I grab them, and I'm like, here are these muffins that I have made, and you're like, I'm happy with this, right? So that's basically what's happening is that the AJAX, the browser thinks it's making a call to localhost 3000, but it's really making it doesn't understand that in the back there, the dev server is doing a proxy where it's like, yep, I'm gonna go over to localhost 3001, grab what you actually need, come back and be like, yes, here you are. Shine on, you crazy diamond. So, I'm getting to watch my instant replay because the YouTube's up. It's fun. All right. So what's happening here is that now I can make a call to /me yarn start. Yeah, it's weird that it's working with 3001 main because usually that doesn't happen. But yeah, now I have the 401 authorized. Huzzah! Hey, let's make this into an async method for funsies. For funsies and whatsies, right? Async load me. So now I can just say like, hey, const response equals await axios.getMe. Console log that response. Only what's actually happening? Are we getting to that console log response? This isn't working, and as a result, we're not getting here. And it says, uncaught in response error, request failed status code 401. Well, how do we do a .catch with the async await? Well, have you guys done try catch before? It's actually just that. Try catch error. So now, hey, error, request failed with status code 401. And I can actually catch what's wrong there, right? In point of fact, I'm gonna go to, yeah, it's fine as is. But I have that 401 authorized and I've caught the error and I've done something with it. So what I wanna do is I wanna start with this .set state loading true. I'm going to try this, and when I get a response, well, let me do a thing real quick. Fetch. Okay, I'm not getting me, there's no me to get. So what I'm going to do is, if I have a response, then I'm going to say, hey, this .set state loading false. Me is response.data. We will get there in a moment. But since we know we have an error, my error behavior is state loading false. And there's no me to be had. So if I have, if this .state.loading, I am going to say let middle section, this .state loading middle section equals h2 loading, right? Else, if this .state.me, I'm going to say middle section equals yay, then maybe just JSON.stringify. You know, I'm going to do a little const me and loading equals this dot state. That's the part I care about, right? So now I can say if loading, if me, JSON.stringify me. Right? Else, middle section is H2. I do not know you. All right, so then we're going to put here middle section, right? They cannot read me of no. Oh, that's right. Haha, if I want to do some state stuff, I actually have to set up the state. Now I'm going to show you a shorthand that is a little iffy. It's based on some like stage 0, stage 1 stuff. But for the sake of lecture, I don't want to write a whole constructor. So okay, go team, I do not know you. Loading, and it's like, I don't know you, right? So we need to actually have a login section. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, I'm going to make, you know, you guys remember the bat signal, right? There's 3 steps. You make the function that changes the state based on something. You pass that down to a child, and then the child will call that somehow. So about 3-step process, and I'm going to start that 3-step process now. Attempt, login, email, password. And here I'm going to say, what do I want to do? I want to say this dot set state loaded true. And I'm going to say, I'm going to put a try catch here. Loading false. Loading undefined, me undefined. So that just says, hey, remove me in the loading from the state. And I'm going to try to get me. So const me equals await axios.post /login with some data. And the data is going to be email and password. So that is my temp login. And I'm going to say this dot, oh, got to make this async as well. This dot set state loading undefined and me is me. Actually, I should say me is response.data. How they allowed out there. Okay, so this kind of makes sense as a like, yeah, I'm gonna start that Axios thing. In a real app, I'd probably put all this Axios stuff behind some other function, just like somewhere else. But that's what we're doing right now. So yeah. So now what I need, if I don't know this person, is I'm going to need some sort of login.jsx, which I kind of started here, but haven't really done much with. So I'm going to make this function. Not the most scandalous way I have typed the word function in a lecture. Don't go back and find that. All right, so login props here is going to be, well, I don't know yet, but I'm going to return the Axstrap login for that's kind of risky. I'm just going to go ahead and say React strap GitHub.io components form email password. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. That's the stuff. Form group. You guys. And then actually, I might as well grab the whole thing. and just delete as needs be. Form, 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 a form, form, form. Yeah, I think the thing you should learn from this is steal. Steal as you can. Just not obviously. I mean, find inspiration. Password, type password, placeholder password, 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 form, 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 form. I'm assuming that on submit works as advertised. I'm not seeing it actually do on submit, like even a little bit. We'll do an on submit, see what happens, right? Const on submit equals .args. This is how I find out what a function does. Is I just do .args and then console.log .args. Form on submit. And I'm going to say forward default function login. Go back to app.js. I'm going to replace this with middle section equals login. So now, yeah, that makes sense. I need to go back to my login and import form group, label, input. What else am I missing? Button. I like using my errors to actually just guide the exact amount of. There's actually a term for like just taking out all your dependencies and then adding them one at a time, and that's called tree shaking. It just helps you figure out like which ones you don't need. So. What happens here? Apparently, let me put a elements console sources. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look for login.jsx, and I'm going to put a breakpoint there. And our args is. If I look at console, try to expect it to open ... Okay, fair enough. Let's just assume it's event and event. Let's try it again. Okay, so it's an object, it's got the things, synthetic event, target is a form, so it is a normal submit event. Thank the almighty. Woo! And I'm going to say event dot prevent default. I'm going to say that here I'm going to have an attempt login prop. Yeah, that sounds like a thing. And I'm going to say attempt login event.target.email.value, event.target.password.value. I want to make sure I actually have things with those names here: name, email, name, password. That seems to be about correct. And I haven't passed down. I'm going to pass this attempt login. Oh, by the way, here's how I tend to do my. I can do my binding up here. If I in the constructor, if I had a constructor, but otherwise, another way that I tend to write these, especially when I'm writing fast code, is just like that. I gotta move the async to be here. But yeah. Okay. continue. Okay. Joel, JOEL. Now, what should happen, take a look at the console, see what's happening. Yeah, 401 authorized, we're okay with that. I'm gonna go back to my app.jsx. I'm gonna see if this gets me where I want it to be. And we're gonna find out if this all works. Submit. Set state load and true. Okay, we're in the right place. Email, password. Got that. We're going to make that Axios post login. Right? We'll notice the network did a login. It was indeed successful. It did indeed return one of these guys. The thing we have now is a response with, I'll actually get one more line down. The response has a data thing, which is what matters. So me is now the response data. And yay, I have me. Right? So now when let me take off this. So now when I reload that page, it's immediately going to load me. It has this guy. This is the guy it has. Everyone looking at this guy? That's the guy. I mean, you're not looking at him yet. Let me, I can then sort of like do better stuff here where I'm like adding me and doing more stuff. I may also want something where I can unload myself, if that makes sense. So now I can make every single call I make has me on it. And this initial call tells me, am I logged in or am I not logged in? If I make this call from an incognito window, localhost 3000, I was not logged in, it shows me the login. I can go to the login, hey, I'm Joel at joel.joel, password Joel, and it's able now to do that as well, right? So we have authentication with Ajax. And it's all through our API routes. Now, if you find yourself using the fetch library, who's heard of fetch? All right, so fetch is a, let's go MDN fetch. Fetch is a browser native, okay, that was, fetch directive, CSP, global fetch API. It provides a generic definition of request and response object, so it's basically a promise-based version of XML HTTP requests that exists in the browser. You have to do a thing where you include the authorization as a step. If you use Axios, you don't need that step. But if you want to use fetch, you can use that step. Cool? Okay. That does the React auth, which leaves us a little bit of time for WebSocket auth. So let's get that happening. WebSocket tutorial. Let's do Express WebSocket tutorial using TypeScript. Hacker Noon. Oh, this is recentish. Cool. Yeah. All right. So now, all right, we've made one more folder for the socket server. Example port listing on 3000. Actually, I want it to be 3002 because you may have socket servers that live at a different place. Socket servers do not have the same cross-domain restriction that you just learned about, which means that you can have a socket server at a completely different domain and it's going to be able to talk to your app. Your app is going to be able to open a connection to it, which I think is dope. So I should be able to say nodemon server.js and it should work. and this says open browser at open console. We can see the connection. We have messages piping in. Cool. So, one of the things I want to do, app.get, yada yada, app.listen, 3002. Yeah, I said node server. This also is bringing in the WS stuff, so WS is kind of happening. You know, it's creating a socket server on that connection. New WebSocket server port 4050 4510, which if we look here at this network, we can see WS. Let's reload this. WS, here's that localhost 44,510. And we can look at the frames. It's connected and it's going to be sending stuff. So, right. There's two things I want to talk about here. The first is that our connection, this yeah. This callback represents the entire life of one person connecting to a socket and disconnecting. Once they have connected, you'll notice that this is WSS.on, the WebSocket server.on. But once we have a connection, then we start connecting stuff to a client, including ws.onMessage, ws.onDisconnect. And we can do sorts of things with that. So what I want to do is I want to console.log this connection real quick. And yeah, let's start with that. Right? Localhost 2002. It's connecting. And what we can see here, well, there's a bunch of stuff. Example WebSocket, close function, ready state, extensions, protocols. A lot of information, some of which I don't know, some of which you don't need to know. Some of which I understand and think you should, some of which I don't understand and therefore think you don't need to. But one of the things that we do have, this is the npmws documentation. Usage examples. I'm trying to look for it up. Okay. So what ends up happening is that we have dot on close. So we have the WebSocket itself. We can add event listeners on message, error, close, that sort of thing. And yeah, that is, let me find WebSocket server. Yeah, so server.on connection, it gets a WebSocket, and the WebSocket and a request. So let's take a look at the request as well. And yeah. So the request, I'm double checking here, has a bunch of stuff, including origin, localhost 3002, host raw headers. So yeah, this is the request we're looking for. Let me do take out the WS and do an object.keys. This is how I do any investigation, is I have to go through these steps. Let me see what all the arguments are. Let me do an object.keys to at least see what they talk about when they talk about anything, right? Do we connect, jump in, URL. That's what I wanted to see. All right. request.url. So there's like the method, there's socket connection, all this sort of stuff, but URL was the one I really cared about. So, right, and the URL is to /. Now let's see what happens if in my WS HTML code here, I'm going to say, I'm going to add some sort of query, right? Token equals banana. I'm going to reload this page. And God willing, I now have a and token equals banana. Everybody, I have an and token equals banana, right? So that means that I can now send information to this when I connect, which brings me to tokens. Now, sessions are great, cookies are great, but they usually travel just on the one domain. They also have this one domain problem. And what we end up doing is, if we have a situation where we now have many servers that are trying to connect, how do I know if you connect to one server that you are also good for that other server? How can I connect? I did the whole like login thing, right? And that lets me know who you are, and there might be some information that I want you to see in an HTTP fashion. Well, it's the air, buddy. Fair enough. All right. So what we can do here is we can say, like, we can pass a token. And I don't know that I'm going to be able to get into this as much, but what we can say is const token. I'm going to write a, what am I going to write? I'm going to write a regular expression. You'll get into those later if you are interested in them. They're just a great way of kind of taking a string and making sense of it. So I'm going to say I'm looking for that, and I'm looking for the phrase token equals, and then some number of like words and letters. In fact, let me just say it's going to be digits. 09, A to Z, capital A to Z, and what else was it to J to B? And periods, I guess. Periods, underscores, balance, underscores. Yeah, dot exec. Request dot URL. And I'm going to say console.log token. So I can pass something here that will then be shared between them, so I can tell the server, hey, this person's totes legit, right? So if I did this, copy over this token, and in my WSHTML, I'm like, hey, token equals all that business. Then when I reload 3002 here, I'm going to see, okay, there is a whole token, and I really only care about go back to my ws.js. If I look through my exec script, this is the thing I care about. So that is 0, 1, 2. So token token match console log token match at 2. So now this is that. At the bottom here I have this token. Yeah. And now I can, so now I've talked about how I'm going to pass this string around, but I haven't talked about what the string actually does. I have 9 minutes to do so. It's going to be amazing. So what I can do with this is I can find out two big sets of things. We're going to do something called JSON Web Tokens, which you kind of saw there for a second. Which is that if I put this in, it is able to establish some claims about this. It's able to actually carry some information. So it's able to carry a name, usually the subject, that's usually where an ID goes. And IAT is issued at, so it was issued at this certain time. I can tell how old this is. Usual claims are also like, I can cause it to expire. So it doesn't seem like I've done much yet. Doesn't mean that this does much yet. So what I'm going to do is crack my neck a couple times. Like that'll crack it. So I have a whole login route stuff. And when you do actually log in, if I do actually have you, if it has me, what I'm going to say here is, in my client, source, chat.jsx. I'm going to create this, import React from React. Just right now, I'm going to make a class. Chat extends React dot component, and I'm going to have a when it is created on component did mount. I guess I want to say this dot socket equals new web socket, and this is going to connect to http:/localhost. Not 3000, it's some weird one. It is 4510, right? And token equals plus this dot props dot token, which we haven't got yet. So I'm going to say over in my app.jsx, okay, whenever someone requests me, I'm also going to include a token. So instead of yay JSON stringify me being all that we have, I'm also going to import chat from chat. Chat.jsx needs to have a render. And for right now, the render is just going to return a p tag with this .props.token. Which is going to be good enough. In my server, so on my server side here, well, let me do just a quick jwt.wtf, and I think that's going to take us really quickly to our time. I do want that to socket on. Out here. See my server. Yeah. So, JSON Web Tokens, what's that for? I'm going to go back to this one, say Control-C, npm add JWT. Yeah, it's called something else, isn't it? We have the node package is called npm install JSON Web Token. Npm add JSON Web Token. Var JWT equals acquire JSON Web Token. And what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to say that I have a secret. And my secret is almug, because there's an almug Christianity. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say JWT const token equals JWT dot sign token. And I'm going to put in a payload, and it's going to have some claims. So name Joel. I'm going to say that my user ID is alpha 1234 Zulu. I'm going to say that my privileges includes admin and super admin. Why not? And then I'm going to sign this. You'll notice it says secret or private key, so I'm going to sign it with my secret. I can also encode this if I wanted to. I could further encrypt it if I wanted to. But for right now, it's fine. And I'm just going to say console.log token. All right. nodemon jwt.wtf.js. So it's going to create this. And what I can do is I can now take it to the jwt.io debugger here, and I put this in. And you'll notice it's pink. Why is it pink? It's able to understand all these things about me. It has all my information, but it's pink. That's because I need to put my secret here, which is owlmug. And now it's able to verify that this is what I said it was. So if I take this, if I say console.log, so const claims equals token dot, or jwt.decode, or verify token with secret by console log claims, it's going to be like, yeah, I know you, you're Joel super admin. But what happens if I try to say jwt.verify that token with a different secret? Swell bottle. Then it's going to get really effing mad at me. Invalid signature. I can't do that with swell bottle. So basically what's going to happen is now all I have to share between my main server and the socket server, basically all these apps that I have authorized, the only thing I have to share with them is the secret. And I never share that with anyone on the front end. The front end has no idea. So now what's basically happened, we have to role play this one more time, full camera, is that I'm going between a couple of servers, which I guess Laura and Danny. So, so you two know each other, and you don't know me very well, okay? But I could be like, you could be like, okay, I want you to go talk to my friend Danny, and tell you what, just tell her, like, tell me something that only you, like, if I was some stranger, and you were like, I want you to go talk to that girl, tell her Laura sent you, and say something that's like an inside joke between you two. You guys have inside jokes yet? Can you pretend to have an inside joke? What would be a pretend inside joke? Like, let's just say you had some joke about, like, elephant sandwiches are tasty, right? So you had some joke between the two of you about that, and you're like, hey, go see my friend Danny, and be like, elephant sandwiches are tasty. And I'd be like, hey, so you know Laura, she said to come over and talk to you because you're cool and we're friends now. And she said something about elephant sandwiches being tasty. And you'd be like, oh, that hilarious elephant sandwiches joke. So they have some inside information between them. And by me coming over and being like, I have this bit of inside information, then we're all on the same page. But here's the thing about this. This only really works if I don't understand the joke, right? If I'm just sort of like, I'm repeating a punchline that doesn't really make sense, as long as I don't understand the joke. See, what's great about that I don't understand the joke thing is then Danny can pass me on to the third person who's inside this joke, Paulina, and I'd be like, oh yeah, talk to her too. Like, elephant sandwiches? And Paulina are like, I don't know what that elephant sandwich is like, right? And this is a very similar thing where it's like, I am carrying around this token and I have no idea what the secret is. I don't get it. I don't get it, but I don't have to. Because the important part isn't that I'm in on the joke. The important part is that the joke, the inside joke, was just everything that Danny needed to know that I was being sent from a reputable source. Right? that's how the secret works. Is that I never actually see the secret. Same thing with sessions, right? I never actually see the secret, the key that it was encrypted with. All I see is a big kind of encrypted nonsense that I keep on handing back, and it's just like, oh, I understand your big encrypted nonsense. Cool, cool, cool. You have meaningful garbage there, right? So I have this token that it's meaningful garbage. It has claims, but it also, I know that it's almug. If I said that it was swill bottle, this thing should tell me, like, I don't know, this thing's usually good about, like, not being okay with that. But when I try to verify with anything else, I can't. So I can't construct a token if I don't have the secret, and I can decode the token in terms of I can see what it has, but I can't then go off and see it. So the big payoff here is this. I have jwt.wtf.js. I am going to say, I'm going to make a function here in my data service. That's also going to include const jwt equals require JSON web token, and I can say const get user token equals function get user token. User is just basically, hey, return const secret equals grasshopper, and I'm going to say, hey, return. Let's just say I'm going to encode the entire thing, right? So return jwt dot sign user secret. So even down here, I'm not going to store their token with the record because I'm going to make it every time. I may see things like, actually this needs to expire after 5 seconds. It's no longer good after 5 seconds, so people can't keep on reusing it. So get user by ID, find get user without password. I'm going to do that. Back here, actually, this would be a good place to token is get user token user. Yeah, that'll do it. So this should be fine. So now when I go to get my login, I'm also getting, that's not happening at login. User by ID. Oh, right. Here I'm going to say return get user password. Let's try again. So I now have that with a token, right? So I have a me with a token. And what I'm going to do here is at my app.jsx. So this has a lot of pieces, right? The server is sending a person, it's also sending a token. I'm going to use that token to immediately log into a chat server. So I am going to say here, here's my chat.jsx, importing chat from chat.jsx. Here I'm saying yay. Here I'm saying chat token is me.token, right? I get to chat.jsx, I'm going to make this connection with this token. Token equals this.props.token. And then, in my ws.js, we'll see what the token match is. So, all right, so we'll try this again. Here's my React app. It's going to get here. Oh, chat, sport, vault. All right. Joel, at Joel. And now it's saying, that's right, HTTP doesn't work. WS does. Try it again. Okay, so I have that token. And in my console, in my network, I have a WS WebSocket here that is sent. I got no frames yet, but if I go here, I can see, oh, there is that token, this .props.token in my ws.js. So what I can say is, for starters, if bang token match, so if he didn't give me a token match, then ws.close. Const claims equals, let's import npm add JSON web token here. Up top here, I'm going to say const jwt equals require JSON web token. And I'm going to say here, all right, claims equals jwt dot verify token match at 2, and we're going to use the same secret, grasshopper. And I'm going to try this. And my catch here is going to so console.log claims. My catch here is going to say ws.close. All right. Yeah. So now we have it listed on 3002. I'm going to reload this. Response is axios.getMe. That's passed through. I'm linked in, and now on my server, on my socket server, it now has trustworthy information from my client server. So my socket server has no connection to my database, right? None. Doesn't need it. It doesn't have any connection to this other thing. It's not living on the same server. It's not living on the same. It could be on a different planet, as far as we're concerned. But it has a trusted connection to this other server, and the trust is I'm sending you a token, and I want you to know it's from me, right? It's like these two have an inside joke that I'm sharing across. And as a client, I have no idea how to make this happen again, right? I could have something that's like, yeah, I can make this expire really quickly. I have a lot of kind of power here to be like, I have the ability to kind of pass this across, but at the same time, I don't have kind of anything else. So now I am able to verify a server, a socket server that comes from this. These JWTs are great because in the days of microservices that we are in now, often we have many different web services that could be sockets, it could be HTTP, it could be TCP, it could be anything. And we have to have some way of verifying across, hey, this person is valid. I do a login once, right? Instead of doing many logins, I have one login that lets me go to my separate places. And that's what JWT gets us. So this was a drink from the fire hose. This is more about like, hey, now you know that there's a way to do that. If you're working on your final projects and people are like, yeah, but if we have 2 servers, someone's going to have to log in twice. You can now throw water in their faces. You can just go to the kitchen and be like, excuse me, I have to get a glass of water. And then you come back and you're like, right? I know it's a hot, stuffy room. Thank you so much for your forbearance. I will have these notes out and all of this stuff in various commits. Yeah. Thank you so very much.
Sure. This is it.